Uh, Hi, my name is Kaho, and I'm the founder of J Advisory. And yeah, so welcome back to episode 7. We've got a very special guest, and the backstory about how we got to do this webinar is actually very funny. I was actually posting a question on the FB group just to get some poll, and the question was asking about what was the age that you first hit your financial crisis. And funny thing was that this is something very intimate. A lot of people may not want to share, but in the FB group, I got like 100 over comments and reply, people sharing their interesting story, which I thought to myself, hey, this is a very inspiring story, and I thought it's a good idea, and I suggested to them, like, what if we created a webinar to share all these inspiring stories so that more people can be inspired to go through the challenges right now, right? So then most of them say yes. Then I was like, oh, cool, let's start, Then that's how we started episode 2. So today we have Chee Khoon on the line, who is, you guys got to give him a lot of encouragement, because if you know Chee Khoon, right, he is somebody soft-spoken and not very loud. So I had to give a lot of incentive and encouragement to him for him to come
introvert.
Yeah, for him to come and share his story, right? So if you guys can see us on the webinar, give us a like. If you guys can see us on Facebook, give us a shout, say hi, happy Wesak Day, right? So Chee Khoon has been in the financial industry for the past 8 years, right, Chee Khoon?
8 years, yeah.
Yeah. So I remember you told me you started in 2013.
Right.
And today we are actually going to find out more on how Chee Khoon actually step out of his comfort zone, leaving his comfortable salary and a great engineering career to start his passion, I would say, right, in personal finance. So I think that's a very big jump, especially, I've been there before as well, and no, this is not a recruitment talk, but we just wanted to get real Malaysians to share their real story so that all of us can learn as well as being inspired, right? So we've got the next 30 to 40 minutes of sharing. So if you guys have any question, please feel free to type into the comment box. So Chee Khoon said that no question is too much of a question.
Right.
All right. So let's just start off with some simple like a kickstart question. All right. So I'm just curious, I know Chee Khoon, what was the passion, or what triggered the change, or you wanting to go into personal finance at that point of time?
Greed. Okay, no lah. Yeah, I mean, it all started. I mean, during my days in corporate, I have always or rather, let me put it this way, wish to improve my personal finance position. Right, I think most of us would do as well. It's just that maybe because of time constraint and so on, we are unable to do so. Hence, let me address a little bit about the word passion that you mentioned earlier, which is a pretty big word, I would say. So I would say that initially, I really wanted to significantly have a conscious effort to improve my personal finance on a gradually basis. So that is the primary reason. Now, it's not that I was in deep bad hole back then. That's why I wanted to do this. But I truly think that personal finance is important, and I really want to make sure that I am able to take charge of it. So that is the primary reason why I do so. or rather I have a foot into personal finance to learn about it and eventually get fully involved in it. So the passion came later. I would say that. I'll be honest and say that the passion came later when things starts to roll. You get satisfaction. It's more of a two-way thing. You get you get what you call clients are satisfied with what you're doing for them. Then the passion comes in even greater. Yeah. So that's how it started.
So actually, the real intention why I wanted to invite Chee Khoon, because when I asked him this question, he was telling me like, my story very boring on there. You sure you want me to put on the interview? I was thinking like,
Yeah.
no lah, I'm sure everybody who's gone through this journey, especially like
Mhm.
the entrepreneurial journey, has a story to tell, right? It's
True.
just for us ourselves, we always feel that it's nothing exciting lah, right? But
Mm.
actually, after we spoke on the phone, it actually has certain things which I think is very important for us to share, and especially right now in the current crisis. Government is always talking about gig economy. Gig economy here is talking about doing freelance work and having a second source of income, because right now everybody's suffering from you know depleting income, being having the salary cut, or some like in the tourism industry and the airline industry literally
Mhm.
get cut now. So I always
Yeah.
remember what my mentor mentioned, that there's two ways of learning. One is actually through awareness learning. That means you know that there is this problem that may happen someday, right? So we actually take control of that and have a smoother transition. The other thing is called impact learning, which is I think what a lot of people get caught in this current crisis, right? So
Right.
Chee Khoon, I mean, do tell us your story, because I think you've got an interesting story from my point of view. How you actually took 16 months to transition from being a corporate guy and then eventually coming into, I think you started off as a unit trust agent and then
Yeah.
eventually got your license in financial planning to where you are right now, right? So how they all started?
Mm, um, okay, a bit of a history. It all started. I must say that it all started with a bit of a love in personal finance. Otherwise, or rather finance. Otherwise, it's going to be very, very difficult. So it started from there. And what happened was I was pursuing my MBA, right? I mean that this is when I am still practicing engineering during my engineering days. I was pursuing my MBA, and back then, I had to decide because I wanted to have a foot into finance. I have to decide whether corporate finance or personal finance. Right. So of course, if it's corporate finance, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that I have to go back to corporate law. I mean, to work for someone is perfectly okay. But because wanting to give it a try, to have your own startup, to be able to take charge of your own financial lives, I opted for personal finance. That's how I started. So that's how the journey started. And that itself allows me, or rather made me have my first move to sit for the exam to become a unit trust consultant. That's how it started. Now, of course, being a unit trust consultant, I was only on a part-timer, or I was only on a part-time basis. I was still in my engineering role simply because I wouldn't know whether it will work out well for me or not. I'll be honest with you.
I think that's the
Because
same concern everybody has, right? Whenever they want to start something new. And which year was that, Chee Khoon?
2013, 2014. Yeah, 2013, I think. Yeah, 2013. That's when I said late or end of 2013, I took my unit trust license exam, film license. So that's how it got started. Now, of course, you're right. I mean, it's so common to know whether you will work out well or not. But I think we won't know until we try, and it's worth trying. It's just that we have to do a careful migration, and that's what I did as well. Careful migration in the sense that you carefully chart out what is needed, what's the gap, and how do you gradually move over your corp. So that's what I did. Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure the time I remember when I met you, the time I just also had a change in career. I remember I actually called you up for a meetup, and at the time, I felt that you were very comfortable in your career, and you didn't seem like the type of person who want to make this kind of change. So,
Ah,
what
okay.
was the first thing that your parents said to you, when you were trying to tell them that you're going to make a move? I think this is one of the things that most of our parents are very worried. Right? Why
Okay,
you work so hard and get a degree, and then eventually, you can do this without even going for a degree, right?
yes, exactly. Or you just need SPM. So, yeah, that's right. Of course, I'm probably one of the lucky ones. I must say that my family members, my mom, my wife, trusted me in a sense that if you think you have charted out the necessary to explore this, go ahead. Okay. Okay. Of course, if when it comes to such um high degree of confidence that they have, right? In a way, sometimes it worries me or you more because
Yeah.
they find that okay, I assume that you know precisely what you're doing. Go ahead, full stop. Then you feel that if that's the case, it must be there's no plan B involved. It has to be a success stories to tell 8 years later and anything. But of course, I don't have the crystal ball. All right.
Okay.
Now
You
today,
told
when we
me you
look
had.
back, I wish I have like I know precisely 8 years from that day. I'll have today. I would have do it. Comfortably do it. And you were right when you mentioned about I wasn't not in a discomfort position in my corporate role. So that has actually, I would say that has actually slowed things down. What I'm trying to say is, I started to look into this in 2013. It could happen in 2011 or 2010 if I'm not comfortable with my corporate role. That is. So the thing is, I'm very comfortable. I love what I'm doing. I really enjoy engineering. Everything was well. Let's of course, money is not everything, but I must mention as well that after being in the corporate world for 9 years, so that is already a senior role, redrawing like a five-figure paycheck. And then it's like, are you absurd? Are you insane to just quit and do what you want to do? So that was the difficult part. That was truly the difficult part.
So can I say it's more of a pull factor rather than a push factor? Because for me, right, why I
Uh-huh.
actually jump out of my comfort zone was because it was a push factor in the sense that there were a lot of political in the corporate world, and I wanted the environment which was very positive, where if I if I were to win, then
Hmm.
the people around me could win together with me. Rather than in corporate, it's more like a either I win or you lose kind of thing, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I think you're right that it's more of like it is more of a pull factor from the other end rather than a push factor. I didn't I truly enjoyed my days in corporate. So pull factor in the sense that I guess it is more of the uncertainty as well as the love to hustle, I would say. Because I mean, if certain individual prefers not to hustle, then I would say that this may not be the journey. Because the amount of hustling, the amount of hours that we put in as we quit, the moment we quit corporate is high, massive to struggle
Yeah,
through.
I can relate to that fear, because you look like somebody very trustworthy, not the type of person who would do sales,
Thank you. All
right?
right.
Because that's the same comment that most people tell me when I decided to leave, right? But I mean the fact that when you told your family and they think that because we've been so used to being dependent on and knowing what we're doing, then eventually they trust you to know
Right.
exactly what the hell you're doing this, taking a five-figure paycheck and cutting it by half and doing your own business.
Mm-hmm.
I think that fear is really what keeps us awake at night. I don't know how do you overcome that fear of yours, and continue to move on a journey. Because I think a lot of the listeners who are contemplating wanting to do this gig economy or second source of income, right,
Mm-hmm.
uh, would also be very fearful. Would you think so?
Yeah, true. Or maybe I would say true to a certain extent. True to a certain extent, as in, if we are groping in the dark, we do not know what is the next course of actions. Now, again, I'm not saying that I have the crystal ball. I'm just saying that if you truly do not know what's the next course of actions, then it may be it's going to be crazily scared. All right. Now, if certain individual would like to probably have an alternative source of income, go ahead, and there is no need to quit a corporate role. That's one thing.
True.
But it may, like in my case, it came to a stage where it is not that my alternative source of income is higher than my corporate paycheck. It is not. It was because I truly enjoy it. After a while, remember I said the passion builds up.
Yep.
When I have my foot in. And then I thought I need to find time if I am expecting to see a growth in the personal finance, or rather in the financial services industry. So, what do I do then? I mean, maybe with the engineering background, I love data. I mean, I love facts. That's how I started to consolidate, or start to chart out the amount of hours that you put in. Can you still maximize the business growth figure? The answer is no lah. Okay, because you see, being in a corporate world, we know 9 to 5, 9 to 6. That's it. That's gone already. And you only have the limited amount of hours in the evening, or probably weekends, to do self-learning, to do business growth activities. So you will come to a stage where I have no more hours to use. Yeah, I literally did plot out. I still remember that I sat down together with my wife, because having the need to convince her as well, or rather to bounce ideas lah. If not, because it doesn't make sense if I straight away tell her that, okay, I'm going to quit my corporate role. So then she'll probably have sleepless nights as well. So I did plot out everything to the extent where this is how the business revenue is over the years, or rather over the months. Okay. And it has always been like that. You know, you can see the growth, and it comes to a stage where it is like saturated. Okay. What is missing? And then we start to probe into the variables that is missing or what other variables that we can plug in place to help with better growth. And time is really one thing. Time really is one thing. It's not because you do not know how to do it, but it's because you don't have enough time. And that's when I start to look into the 60 months transition period. That's when the 60 months transition period came in.
So you really went through that whole planning from engineering process. I think most of the listeners can hear from what you're sharing, right?
Uh-huh.
Your background does help you, like, in that sense.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think now that you have mentioned, I think it does. Maybe because I probably it's a big, I would say it's a big decision to me lah. Because so
It is.
I really
Very
have.
fair. It's a big decision to anybody because
Mhm.
were you married that time?
Yes,
Yeah, I
married.
know. But
Yeah,
no kids yet lah.
no, not yet.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it's still a very big responsibility to start a family, and also having that shared responsibility to
true.
support the family, support the household, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can put it in this way that you need money to support an entity, and in this case, the family is the entity lah. Okay, once again, money is not everything, but in reality, we really need that as well to run certain tasks or certain role. Okay, so it does worry me. Hence, I have everything charted out to identify the gaps. And then the answer is time. Then I make sure that there is enough reserves for 16 months. Then I started to do this on a full-time basis. Then that's how it take off.
So it seems like what you're saying also is the fact that when in your corporate career you reach a plateau, and in order to have the kind of lifestyle that you imagine for your family, the career couldn't really help you further, right? Is that what you're saying? Was that also the reason for the switch?
Not really also, Not really, It's not that the career couldn't fulfill my lifestyle. It's just that I think it's deep inside me. I truly wanted to have a startup, and there are various reasons why I wanted to do that. It's really just to take charge of your life
So the
and
inner desire of the entrepreneurship, of taking
right,
charge of your life, lah, right?
correct, precisely. Because I must thank my what do you call, my previous employer for what they have given me. In terms of training. I mean, they never say no. They never hesitate if you wish to what they call expand your knowledge in certain engineering areas. And at the same time, when it comes to pay wise, I would say that it is comfortable. So I won't. So it is pretty much fulfilling to maintain a good lifestyle over the years. That's fine.
Okay, cool. Actually, we have more and more listeners on the line. We're actually talking to Chee Khoon today because we want to find out from somebody who actually transitioned from being an employee to going into this gig economy, something which is your own, and eventually for him to come to this point where he's a licensed financial planner to build his own career, right? So we actually have a lot of people on the line. We have Fion. Hi, Fion. Hi, Wendy. So please, if you got any questions, please feel free to type in the Q&A with Kenman as well on FB Live.
Oh,
Kenman,
okay. Hi.
yeah, so we'll leave the questions later, lah, right? But I'm just curious, what was the process, or what do you do in the 16-month transition? Because you mentioned that part, right?
I think I can be summarized in a way by saying like you hustle like crazy. And I really mean it when I use the two words. Why? Because I'm trying to draw a picture or paint a picture where there's no turning back. So 16 months again that I've charted out is number one, to make sure that there's enough reserves, right? Or whether we commonly call it as emergency funds, right? So there's enough reserves for 16 months. Why 16? I don't know, maybe just trying to be conservative. I mean, it's very common. You may say that you need 6 months, you need 12 months, or you need 8 months to make sure that you can, for a comfortable pool of emergency funds. So I'm just trying to double it or stretch it. So instead of 8, I do 16. And
But
then
16 is very, very conservative, because typically we will talk about 6 months and 12 months.
Right.
I was also about to ask you why 16 months, but you already answered the question.
Okay. Right. Then why 16? Why 6? Okay, of course, partly why 16 also because maybe I can only afford 16. Well, if I can, right, I can afford 16, and 16 is the timeline that I would have drawn, and what will be the next course of actions needed the next day when I wake up. So it requires a very careful, or rather, a high degree of self-awareness is required. Okay, I'm not sure about you, or I'm not sure about the other, or the listeners here, but humans, or rather myself, can be very lazy. Okay, so you need to make sure that if you're doing it on your own, you got to make sure that you can't be waking up at 11:30 and wrap up your day at 4 o'clock. Hence, when I say I will chat out the next course of actions, it literally means like 9:30, what is it I'm going to do? 10:45, what is it I'm going to do, and so on.
Yeah, in fact, I wanted to add to that because a lot of people, when they start their solopreneur or their entrepreneur journey, the feeling that, being your own boss, they always think that, you can actually do whatever you want and then open your shop at whatever time you open, right? But it doesn't really happen that way, right? So
True.
I think doing this for 8 years, do you have that structured timing because you will have that in your thought all the while, or was it because part of the business taught you this way?
I would say 50-50 lah. Because I mean, even before I quit corporate, I think the awareness is already there that I need a certain degree of self-discipline, right? How do I do that? By charting out my calendar. That's one thing, right? And of course, being in the industry, the mentors that I've met in the industry would have warned me how important it is to maximize the time that you have on a weekly basis.
Cool.
Yeah.
I mean, just talking about this because one of the key point you mentioned, Chee Khoon, is that you were doing it part-time at one point of time, right? Because that's how you build up the passion and eventually decided, hey, this is something which I like to do and you want to do it full time. Because a lot of people mention that, I mean, we all know as human beings, it's very hard to multitask. Yeah, that's the word.
Right.
So for me, I mean, I can relate to that because one reason why I went full time at the point of time was because it was very challenging multitasking as well. So
Okay.
at the same time, Randy is also asking then at that point of time, right, how do you balance your time between corporate unit trust and also family?
Again, I must answer this with a relatively boring answer in the sense that I rely on calendar, or rather, I call it as time boxing. I rather box the time. Okay, I put it this way: like 9 to 5 or 9 to 6. That's it. I mean, we have to deliver the necessary. The fact that we are employed, that's fine. But the moment we reach home, you're going to already define probably 7:30 to 8:30. What are the things that you're going to do? It is already well defined to the extent where when you come back, you do not need to think, but you just follow the calendar. And in fact, till to date, I'm doing the same as well. Right. Instead of having a to-do list, okay, case to case basis. For me, I'm not quite a fan of a to-do list, lah. Right. It's just because if the task is so simple, you should already have it executed. Then. Now, if the task is something that probably requires to do some work or thinking, it's best to have it punched into your calendar. You will then already box the time needed to do that particular task so you don't overlook them. So that's my take.
Yeah, I like the word you shared, time boxing, because essentially what you're trying to do is to make it very structured that eventually it becomes a habit, right? It becomes a ritual, right?
Yes. It becomes a ritual. Things that needs to be done, it goes to calendar. That is also to prevent what you call distractions and so on. Right. Now, of course, apart from all that, I would say longer nights as well. I must say. I mean, it's not that I can sleep at 10 o'clock. I'm sure you don't as well. There are times where I have to stretch it to a little bit late. So late nights, I would say not avoidable for me. For me. Yeah.
So I mean, for those of you who are thinking of going into having a second source of income and expecting it to be easy, I think you also have to brace yourself that as an entrepreneur or a solopreneur, sometimes the hours that you put in may be longer, right?
Yeah. Or rather, in a case where certain individual, or rather, if it's in you, you shouldn't mind. Or maybe what do you call, what's the phrase?
I think I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
When it becomes a passion, work doesn't really becomes a job. It's something
True.
you enjoy doing as well, right?
Yeah, you don't drag your feet to do that particular report. You don't drag your feet to do some data study, some study and things like this. You don't anymore. If you do, then probably it's time to revisit. Is this really something that you're going to hold on to for the next 20, 30 years? Right.
True,
You
true.
shouldn't be dragging your feet on it.
I think that's one of the criteria that a lot of successful people have that we used to study, because they do what they love to do, and eventually the work and the hobby that they're doing, right, becomes so blurred that eventually it becomes one thing. That's where
Right.
we talk about passion, and yeah, they spend a lot of hours, just like Warren Buffett. You can continue to read annual reports even past his working hours into the wee hours in the morning, but he enjoys it, right? So I think
Right.
that's what you are also saying, right, Chee Khoon?
Yes, true. Now again, I will maybe let me that's one point. The other thing is I would say that you don't take it as a job because okay, let me put it in a very blunt manner by saying that the fact that you're working because you needed money to support your lifestyle and so on, right? Now the source of income or rather money can come from multiple sources. So the fact that if you are already taking good charge of your money or finances in terms of how you manage to increase the productivity of the money that you have, then it is actually you're not really working lah, right? So the hustle is needed in the early days, no doubt on that. right? Once you have built up a sufficient pot, you then be able to use the money that you already have to fund yourself as well, right? And it works. Yeah.
So can you tell us more, Chee Khoon, share with us more, what was it that you do specifically in the 16 months when you were planning the transition? Was there specific things that you were doing? Because, I mean, from our
Yeah.
observation, you actually did a lot of things.
Specific things, yes. I would say that what are the things that I will already define to make sure that I can fill up the pipeline. Okay, like again, it depends on what we're doing. Like myself, being in the financial services industry, we all know that prospecting is needed. Okay, we don't run away. We can't run away from that, right? Delivering a good job is needed, which means a constant learning or continuous learning is required as well. Filling up the pipeline to reach out and to have a closure. Okay. So these are all going to be well defined in my weekly activities. Um, I would say that it is as simple as that. The awareness, I think you're right when you say you use the word awareness. You are aware that you need to do this. You just have to make sure that you have the necessary activities to fill up your pipeline. It's not going to have any magic that happens. Now, let me also say that before we can say filling out the pipeline is one thing. I would say it starts off with having a vision statement. Okay, you're going to define clearly where do you want to head to with this role. Okay, coming back to the 16 months again, we can put it in this way. 16 months, of course, I'm glad that it took me lesser than 16 months to have a relatively stable business income. That's one thing. Otherwise, blood pressure would be very high. Okay, now so that's wonderful, and the vision would have been well defined in a sense that probably by 6 months, what is it that you want to have or achieve? Okay, it does not need to be a very big picture, but these are micro milestones worth defining to make sure that we are on the right track. So again, what do I do for the 16 months? Vision is well defined, means probably what is it that you want to do lah? Okay,
But
in my
just to
case,
stop you there, Chee Khoon, because
uh-huh,
a lot of people don't really have a vision for what they want to do. Normally, when people jump up, it's normally is something which is tied to their passion. If you like to cook, then normally they'll open an F&B. Like you for personal finance, either you join the insurance or insurance industry those days, because
uh-huh.
financial planning wasn't really
Mm-hmm.
out, right? But what would you say to those people who really don't have or don't have any idea or clue?
Uh, okay, maybe let me rephrase by using the word goal instead. Okay, because at the end of the day, we just want to know what we're heading to the next morning when we wake up. Let me put it in this way. I mean, I tried to explore other businesses as well, but okay, sorry. Okay, let's come back to personal finance. You would then know that, for example, you are capable of having multiple sources of income once you cover other areas of personal finance. For example, estate planning, insurance, and so on. So with that itself, you would then make sure that you want to do the learning, the license, and so on, because essentially with the same pool of clientele, if you have been doing the good job, I would say, the trust has been built, the vote of confidence is there, they will very likely wish to work with you again in other areas. And when it comes to personal finance, it's a very broad umbrella. It's a very broad umbrella.
Exactly.
Yeah. And putting it this way, it's like we all know that the cost involved to seek for a new client is definitely higher than your existing client.
Yeah, true.
So go ahead and expand the degree of services that you can do, or rather you can offer to handle the same pool of clientele. That helps. So these are the activities that I will have as well.
Okay, while you're at that point, the 16 months, right?
Mm.
So I'm sure this thought came into mind because there's this question from anonymous. He's asking like, if during the 16 months at any point of time, if really your business failed, would you have gone back to the corporate world?
Okay. I would say that I may not be in a position to answer the question well because it didn't happen, so I'm glad it didn't happen.
I'm sure that thought would have gone through your mind, because
Yes.
you're such an engineering person. If this happens, then what would you do, and this else, what would you do, right?
Correct. And that is a killer, I would say. Okay, of course, very often I enjoy reading motivational quotes and things like this. Of course, sometimes these quotes may sound lovely in a sense that you should never have a plan B, things like this. But very often it doesn't quite work, or rather it didn't work for me as well in the early days. There's this line of thought still, if something goes wrong, if I cannot, I'll still go back to corporate. Yes, it does. What do you call?
That's cross your mind,
In my mind, it does cross my mind. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is where the decision, or rather something that I use, maybe I can introduce that as well. Something I call 9-grid array, just to hamper your thoughts. Okay, or just to feel the necessary, just to make sure that the thoughts are right. So if you're so busy working on what is necessary to meet your micro goal that has been well defined, chances are you will ignore that. Okay, I'm saying this based on experience, because there are days or there are nights where it will cross my mind, it's so tough, it's so difficult. Why am I going through all this? I can just go back to corporate and continue to have or earn the 5-figure income, which is still okay for my lifestyle. Yes, it does. But if your day or nights are so busy working or chatting out what are the necessary course of actions needed to meet that micro goal that you have just defined 6 months down the road or 8 months down the road, what has happened to me is you kind of forgot that lah. Yeah. Keep yourself busy with the right activities, I would say.
So I'm sure some of the audience is asking like, what the hell is 9-grid array? But before you answer that question, right, I've got a follow-up question to the earlier question. Because when you say you don't entertain the thought, or rather you use your focus on doing the right activity so that it makes you move forward towards the goal, right? But I'm sure there will be a time or a situation like, when do you know that the thing doesn't work and you decide to cut off and go back to your corporate world? I think that's more of a more important question, because when you talk about failure, right, sometimes it's how you define it. But a lot of people who are going through the same experience that you went through, sometimes certain people quit too early, certain people quit too late.
Right. Okay, yeah, quit too late, and then the damage is so painful or significantly bad.
Exactly, and then they end up having a lot of debts. That's where we actually help them to get out of debts, right? Through one of our debt management workshop. So I'm sure that crossed your mind, right? That's the follow-up question that I'm curious to find out as well.
Okay, hence that has been well defined since day one. Hence the reason why 16 months. So when I talk about 16 months, it has already taken into consideration the amount of worst case scenario expenses if the business really stay stagnant or flat. Flat, I'm not talking about low growth, I'm talking about flat for 16 months. Then will I still be able to not be in debt and probably go back to corporate? The answer is yes. So that's the reason not a reason. I mean, that's how I define 16 months.
Can you give us an example? For example, like, is it something that you set the income goal of, let's say, because you're earning 5-figure, assuming it's 10K, right? So in the 16 months, are you setting yourself like, once I hit the 10K, then I know that I'm going to continue? Or was it more like, even you haven't hit the 10K, but because the business hasn't really picked up and it's always like that?
All right. Okay, it will be the second spot on actually, Kaho. It will be the second scenario that you mentioned. It is not so much of the monthly income target that I have back then, but rather how well has it gained traction? What kind of momentum are we seeing? Are we looking into? That is the determining factor of whether is this a business that you can stay on.
Spoken like a true entrepreneur. Because I met a lot of people, right? When they said 10,000, they hit it within 1 year. Then they said the next year 20,000, they hit it the second year. But funny thing is that after 2 years, they quit from this business. Not because the money wasn't good, but because they were testing out the business.
Okay.
And they found out that they don't really have a passion for the business.
All right.
Yeah, but the income was good. So you were the other way around. You were testing it from the point of view of how well this business can continue to grow, even though it may not have hit your income goal, even if the 16 months, but because you know that this is a viable business that you continue to work on it, right?
True. And also, apart from the potential income growth, partly I find that this is also a very good source of passive income down the road. When I have to start walking around with a tongkat at time, that's where the passive income comes in. So it's lovely. I don't think that we can really or define or stamp a retirement age for such journey, I would say. Yeah.
So I'm just very curious, would you mind sharing what is the 9-grid array? Because I'm sure a lot of people are curious as well.
Okay. FYI, 9-grid array is still something that I'm using right now because we only have 24 hours a day and there's so many things to do. I must admit that
9-grid array is a way of how you manage time, is it? Because I've never heard of it before.
Okay, how I would say indirectly, or let me put it this way, how I prioritize the task. So it's not exactly a time management thing. Okay, actually indirectly it is a time management thing because there's so many things that you're going to do. You're going to prioritize what needs to be done. Okay, so I'm going to share a simple slide on this to walk through so that we have a visual to look into. Before I share, you will see, okay, this is simple.
Yeah, I purposely got Chee Khoon to share this because I couldn't visualize when he was trying to tell me earlier. I think it's similar to something like an Eisenhower matrix. But yeah, please continue, Chee Khoon. I'm just to learn as well.
Okay. Okay, FYI, of course, it's supposed to be something simple. Here's why. We wouldn't want to spend half an hour to prepare the framework. Then only you shout out the task involved. That's absurd. Okay, half an hour can do a lot of things. So it's as simple as having 2 axes. Okay, you can use a plain sheet of paper. You can start to scribble this as well. Task that is very impactful. Okay. Let me re-emphasize this. Before we look into this, right? We should already know where we're trying to head to. That's why the importance of having a goal statement or rather a vision statement. Otherwise, we may have difficulty to fill up this.
So when you say a vision to move towards to, you're talking about during the 16 months, you have certain goals that you were setting, right?
True. Yeah. Or even like now as well. Okay. So the examples that I plug in here, it is a little bit more relevant to what I'm doing right now. But 60 months, yes, I use this. Now I'm still using this simply because we only have 24 hours. So once again, once we have the goal or rather vision well defined, we know what is it that we're trying to hit. Sorry. You then have a simple axis, difficulty, and also impactful. So with the list of actions or rather ideas that crosses your mind, you should already be able to easily pack them into these boxes. You don't have to put any deep thoughts about it on it, by the way. Again, the key intent is to prioritize your task, but don't overthink to the extent where you have to think of, you have to take 1 hour to decide. Okay, let's use this example instead. Let's say CRM upgrade. It is CRM is, I'm sorry for the abbreviation. CRM is customer relationship management software. So if I'm going to look into a CRM software upgrade, right, you do not need to think about, okay, how do I fill up this? I mean, the fact that it is not going to be easy, I put it here. Difficulty level is high. All right. Is it impactful to what I'm going to do or what I'm trying to achieve? It is not very impactful. But I find that it is lovely if I can one day hop over to a better CRM software. That's why I put it here. There's no right or wrong. If you find that the difficulty is higher for you or to you, you put it here. That's all. Okay,
Okay.
that's one. You see like this as well. Better slide animation. I mean, I usually prefer, okay, when it comes to my discussion or presentation to both corporate as well as individual, I do use slides. And sometimes, I mean, I do enjoy typography slides, things like this. Why? Because it's nicer as well to you lah. And I mean, the fact that you have to work on it 24/7, if
Yeah.
things are nicer, it's
Yeah.
lovely. Difficulty, it is not difficult, but it's not very impactful. I can always park this aside first, especially when I'm busy with other things. Okay, like all this. Existing 12 leads from XYZ. This is an actual scenario. So it's an existing hot leads. Is it difficult to reach out? No, obviously it's not, but it's very impactful. So this is probably something that I'm going to work on before noon tomorrow, Friday. Okay. This is not a complete 9-grid array, of course. Usually when I scribble on my 9-grid array, it is very messy one. It's all over.
So just let me understand first from my point of view. So what you're
Uh-huh.
saying is that during the 16 months, you probably have a ton of things that you want to do.
Yes.
And then you list down all these tasks, and then eventually you will try and put those tasks into the difficulty level versus how impactful is it.
Yes,
So you
correct.
basically have to sort of understand, like, hit a 10,000 per month income or meet 5 people a day. So
True.
is that something which the process that you actually take yourself through when you do this 9-grid array?
Yes, true. See, I mean, especially during the 16 months, right? It is relatively at its infant stage. And I have a lot of things that I would like to do in the pipeline. For example, to make sure that presentation template is in place, better animation and all. But these are the things which can wait, So it doesn't take, the priority is to be able to fill up my pipeline. The business development activities will be very important. The reach out, seeking for referrals and all. Those are the crucial activities. So those are the ones that usually falls under here lah,
Which one?
on the right side, because it's impactful. Right.
Okay, so after you put in all the 9-grid array,
Hmm.
fill up all the boxes, so you're supposed to focus on those which is impactful and easy ones, is it?
Yes, you can say that. Okay, whatever that is so easy to do, but it's very impactful, let's get it done first.
Okay. Then what's next?
I don't have an exact rule or rather algorithm to this.
Yeah.
Why? Because sometimes things are nice to do, especially during your rest days. Like today, rest day, you probably cannot do anything over here. You can always look into something. Hey, maybe let me update my slide animation. Go ahead and do that during your rest days.
I see. Okay, so there's no hard and fast rule. So, but basically, it gives you a clarity when you put everything into this 9-grid array. So you'll
Correct.
be able to manage and juggle all the tasks, right?
Yeah, true. And now there's no hard and fast rule, but you see, the thing is, in reality, this is not an actual scenario. I can't snapshot the actual scenario because try to imagine this is actually filled with a lot of things that you have in mind and all.
Okay.
Now, very often, your priority will always be this, or rather, hardly, if you're so busy and you don't have what do you call, probably staff to help you out, especially during the early days, you'll be most likely solopreneur alone. You will only be able to focus on this. And this is what I truly want as well, especially like for the past 16 months, I want to make sure that it is sustainable. I want to make sure that the income is sustainable and things like this. So it's always about here.
I see. So you're focusing a lot of the impactful activities rather than the difficult activities.
Correct. Can I also use this example? You see, like for the first 16 months, I would say it is very critical for me to make sure that I'll take care of the existing pool of clientele, things like this, and not so much on reaching out to corporate back then.
I see.
None at all. But then now, you see, of course, it changes from time to time, right? For the first 16 months, there is no intention to reach out to any corporate to do any talks or things like this. No time for that. I
Yep.
really don't have time for that.
Yep.
Mm.
So because follow up to the statement that you just made, right? Or the sharing that you just made, Wendy was asking like, do you refresh this grid every day or every week?
Sorry, come again?
She was asking, do you refresh this grid every day or every week?
I do it weekly lah. Especially weekend, you can start to scribble things to prepare for the week. I don't do it daily. Right. Now, again, there's no hard and fast rule. Why? Because as we go along the week, trust me, there will be a possibility where something comes in. And if that, again, use this as an example, existing 12 hot leads that comes in on Tuesday. This guy is going to, we are going to prioritize this guy across every other task that I have for the week.
Got it. I think
Mm.
this is very important because you know what? Since I am somebody who already went through that same process that you went through, right? We notice a lot of people end up focusing and doing a lot of the activities which it looks important, but it may not be very impactful. And the difficulty level is very high. So you end up spending a lot of time and energy on doing it rather than actually spending, those activities which you can do it quickly and equally impactful as well. Right. So I think this is very, very helpful.
I find it that way as well. And I find it true and again, I find it helpful only if the goal has been well defined. Otherwise, it's just equally groping in the dark. So every time before I fill up this, you're going to revisit, you're going to ask yourself again. I thought you mentioned that you wanted to have to have a new business partner by end of this year. Okay, who's the business partner? Probably to start to handle estate planning. Maybe all along you don't handle estate planning, and you realize that before end of the year, I want to make sure that I have another alternative source of income, which is to cover estate planning. Then that is the direction that you're going to head to. Right. Yeah.
Lovely. Thanks for sharing the grid array. We've
Right.
got a few more questions that on the line. For those of you who wants to ask Chico any question, please feel free to type in the Q&A in the webinar. If you're an FB, type in FB. And Alan, can you help me to just look out for some questions in FB? Wendy has another question. Is it given the pandemic, does it impact you as an entrepreneur as compared to being an employee?
Okay. I've been asked that question many times actually so far. Okay, I must say that it is very industry dependent as well, the pandemic. No doubt some of the industries are affected. Disregard whether you're employee or entrepreneur. Some of the industries are affected. Let me put it this way. Okay, I don't applaud that the pandemic hit us. I don't, but probably I'm one of the lucky ones where personal finance is one of the industry that probably did pretty well as well last year and this year. Why? Because there is a huge awareness, or suddenly there's a spike in awareness on insurance, portfolio, estate planning, things like this. So that it has helped to increase my income. Maybe I would say that, if I may say that. But I don't applaud that the pandemic hit us.
Lovely. I think it's just being in the right time and the right place, what you're saying. And because you already went through the challenges about 7 to 8 years ago, which a lot of people, sometimes when you are in this comfort zone, sometimes we cannot see the situation that we're in and the problem that will eventually hit us, right? So I think maybe in the sense, that's one reason why I wanted you to share your experience, to give strength to those people who are currently transitioning. I think that's a period, if I recall my period, it was very scary and a lot of butterfly in your stomach.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Of course, if any of you out there who has started or one foot into whichever venture that you're trying to do so, my quick answer is, of course, go ahead and do it. But do it carefully. You're going to chart out what is necessary rather than groping in the dark. Now, when I say go ahead and do it, it's simply because there's something like I truly learned over the past couple of years. is, our dearest late Steve Jobs. He always say that you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. I'll be honest with you that this is one of the lovely, inspiring quotes that I couldn't really comprehend during my days in corporate, during my corporate days.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I read it and then, yeah, this is what you say, yeah. But I tend to understand it much better now, because every step that I took, when you look back, you realize that it is taken or there for a reason. Or rather, where you are right now is many thanks to what you have done in the past. And to be honest with you, once again, I don't have a crystal ball, though I do wish that I have. My journey will be much easier if I have a crystal ball, but I wouldn't be able to know that. I want to make sure that I become a licensed financial planner so that I can be where I am right now. I want to make sure that I took this course so that I can deliver this. So that I want to make sure that I'm a HRDF trainer so that I can start speaking to corporates. No, I don't know. I mean, I was just doing it.
Cool. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more, because I keep telling to a lot of people who are currently struggling in this crisis, right? Because many are so comfortable in their employment, and then suddenly when this crisis hit, when they had a pay cut, and then they have to helter-skelter to find a second source of income. And I keep telling a lot of them that, sometimes this thing will meant to happen, not in a bad way, but in a good way, where maybe the person up there, is
Right.
trying to make you a stronger person, a better person, trying to prepare you for something even bigger that may happen. So I always feel that, this is something happening and you should be grateful for it. Of course, we cannot see and be grateful in that current situation, I know, but when I
Yeah.
look back at my journey,
Mm.
I realized that everything happens for a reason. And if I did not take the plunge, uh,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be where I am. Not to say that I made it and done it, but in the sense that you can see your growth from a personal development point of view. I think you agree with me, right, Chee Khoon?
Yes, agree. And it's so true. And that's where the what you call, there's this phrase fits in. Let me try to recall this phrase, like, you can't cross the ocean unless you leave the shore or something, right? Right. You can't unless, yeah, lor.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
relate to what you say. There was a story somebody told me, but I can't remember the story right now. But yeah,
Okay.
so far we don't have any FB questions for now. I
Right.
normally at the end of the session, um, I
Mhm.
will sort of wrap up. But before I wrap up, I've got these questions for you. So I think a lot of the audience will want to know as well. Have you ever regretted
Uh-huh.
taking the plunge or moving to where you are right now?
No lah. No lah. I'll probably say that, why didn't I do it earlier? Okay, lah, no lah. Again, there is no regrets lah. Whatever happens, happens for a reason. Maybe if I made the move in 2011, I would have failed. Maybe I'm just saying, right? So let's just appreciate whatever that has happened, or rather feel contented. But this regard, feeling content. I mean, being contented is one thing, but I find that in whatever situation that we are in right now, it could be better. Now, I do enjoy where I stand right now, right? Many thanks to many individual who has helped me along the way as well, mentors. Yeah, to name out a few, like back then, the founder of Success Concepts, Joyce Chua, she has helped me a lot as well. Founder of Lifa, Gan Chin Sun, these are the individuals or mentors who has helped me a lot. But at the end of the day, it could be better, right? We're just going to.
What would what would
Yeah,
you
go ahead.
say that if those people who are currently going through the transition,
Mm.
now what would you like, if there's one thing that because you went through it, right?
Uh-huh.
What will you tell them or share with them so that they can persist on their current journey?
I guess it may be a very difficult thing for me to have a blanket answer to all, but I must say that the clarity has to be there. Okay. Okay, let me use example to explain what do I mean. We cannot say that we wake up one day and say that, okay, that's it, I want to open a coffee kiosk. I'll be very persistent and I want to open a coffee kiosk, but I do not know enough about coffee beans. I do not know enough about suppliers. Then that's absurd. So what I'm trying to say is, at the end of the day, we're going to make sure that what are the necessary activities needed for for the business that you're going to venture into, and do not hesitate to look out for help. You'll be surprised. You just have to ask. You will be surprised. You just have to ask. There will be a lot of individual out there who is willing to tell you what are you on the right track or are you not. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is so important, but yet is being taken granted for so many times. Especially a lot of the people that I've seen or have met in my entrepreneurial journey, that they don't ask enough for help. Maybe because of the way they put up a strong front, and
Okay.
people think that they're okay, right? But the mere fact that when we ask for help, really, you then realize that there are so many people willing and ready to want to help you.
Right.
So, if there's something I would add on to that, I think this would be the key takeaway from today's session is to continuously ask for help. Not in the way that you want to take people for granted, but in a way that, when you think that nobody else can help you, but actually there are, it's the only way is just to be able to verbalize it or to share it.
Yeah, and let me share an actual thing that I do sometimes as well. On LinkedIn, I have reached out to individuals to ask for their opinions on certain things or certain areas, I mean, of their expertise before as well. And yes, I do get answers. I do get meetings, yam chai and all. Of course, not last year lah. Okay, but yes, I do manage to meet up with them. They're willing to share.
Okay, we have one last question, although we are a bit out of time. So we're just going to take one more last question and then I'm going to do a wrap up. So Randy is asking, being a personal financial planner has many areas to cover. What would you advise to somebody who wants to come into this industry? For example, do you start from insurance, unit trust, or property investment?
uh, it will take another 3 hours to address that. Okay, let me put it this way. I would say that in every segments or each of these segments, let me summarize into 3: investments, insurance, and also will and trust. Estate planning. Bear in mind that the degree of support available from all these business partners are very high. Okay, the willingness has to come from our own first. I won't be able to be honest. I won't be able to gauge investment is easier, or rather insurance is easier, or estate planning is easier. The most important thing is to know who you will be working with, because it's going to be a life journey. You're going to make sure that you're comfortable working with your team, and the people around you whom you'll be working with is more important, because there are success stories coming from insurance, success stories coming from investments, success stories coming from estate planning as well. True. So again, I wouldn't emphasize and say that you should start the journey with insurance because it's easier, or investment because it's easier. Unfortunately, I don't have an answer to that lah. But here's the thing: if you are really interested to look out into having a foot into personal finance, majority of the insurers right now, they always have, or rather they have some kind of academy or program to assist you in a sense that you get paid, or maybe you get paid a sum, and at the same time you get full commission. So that will help someone significantly to migrate from corporate to personal finance arena, right? So insurance is probably something that you can look into if you want, simply because of the the allowance that they can give.
Okay, let me just add on to that question, because it's something I was just talking to a friend yesterday. I think what if I were to give that advice to somebody who's coming into this industry is to be very clear and of what he wants to do, whether it's insurance, unit trust, or estate, and stick to it, be an expert in it. Because people look for specialization, they look for specialists, right? So
Right.
A lot of times I met a lot of people who are still very blur into what business they are doing, and they could be doing a lot of activities which is not related to the business. So I think clarity, like you mentioned and Chee Khoon earlier, is
Right.
very, very important.
Yeah. True.
All right, so we've come to the end of this session, this interview. Thank you very much, Chee Khoon. But before you go, I'm just going to do a wrap up because I think very importantly, as all our interviews, I learned the most. So here's 3 things that I've learned today, and to summarize for our listeners who's going to watch this video back again. So really, Chee Khoon, what really works for you, helping you to transition from being from having a 5-figure salary to being a solopreneur and eventually having a career out of it, it's really these 3 things, right? I realized you mentioned being very disciplined and having a ritual or process that you can help yourself to continue to focus on doing the right thing and doing the thing right. I think that's very important. A lot of people don't have the habit, or they like to do one thing and then eventually they switch to another thing.
Yeah, switch around too much. Okay.
Right. The second thing is really about the environment of being with the right people, whether you actually have the positive environment.
Right.
I think that's very important. I think it's something which you don't say enough of, but I happen to pick it up because a lot of the other entrepreneurs I've noticed and interviewed and spoke to them, one of the biggest challenge that they have, or they didn't continue to pursue what they wanted, was also because they weren't in the right environment, being with the right people, right?
Right.
So that is really important. And then the third thing will be, if you ever want to pursue any side gig or a career or business, I think you mentioned it very well, which is planning and research. That's why the 16 months.
Yeah, I mean, true. I don't know how to emphasize this even more, but I really rely on that a lot.
Yeah. So like you mentioned just now, so if you want to be in the coffee business, if you don't know enough about the business, then it's going to be very challenging to start off first. So I think you probably took a lot of time to do a research into this industry before you eventually came into it, on top of the 16 months planning.
Yes, I did.
As well, right? So that's why these are the things that I picked up. So thank you very much, Chee Khoon, for the time and spending with us to share your story. I'm eternally grateful.
Most welcome.
Yeah.
Good.
So any last words before we end tonight's show?
Nothing else. I guess probably the last thing that I'll shout out is if you're married or you have a family, transparency with your family members is very important. So that they are well aware of your journey and also your hustle. Very important. You share with them.
Well said. Thank you very much, Chee Khoon. For those of you who managed to get your AZ registered today, congratulations. Good. So happy for you guys. I didn't get it, but yeah, stay safe. Continue to stay indoors, guys. Let's not let the numbers continue to go up. Today it's like 7,000 plus already.
Yeah. Good. All good.
All right. Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Bye.
Bye.